Hello, hello, hello. Let me just get my notes. I'll be back in a tick. I want to talk to you today about how Joseph was thinking. How did Joseph think? What did he do? Now, let's start from when he was born, not when he was born, when he started telling his brothers about the dreams that he had. You see, many people, many scholars have told us that he should not have told his brothers, his father, about his dreams. He should have just kept quiet. Yes, that's an option. However, he did tell them. And I'm interested in the fact that even because when somebody hates you, his brothers hated him because his father gave him a colored coat. He didn't give it to all of them. So his brothers hated him and he was aware of that. But why don't we read that he did something wrong? Because he had the colored coat before his dad, Jacob, sent him to go and visit with them and find out how they are doing in the field with the animals. You note that he did not go, he was not sent. It was his big brothers that went to look after the animals, and they were grazing and all that. And when he got there, they saw him approaching and they said, "Oh yeah, that's the person that dad loves," and they were jealous of him. And on top of that, in addition to that, he had told them about these dreams that made him look like he was the boss, and they were not. So, oh, you can kind of like, okay, yeah, they were justified in being jealous, but were they? Why don't we read anything about how Joseph reacted to them? Because when somebody dislikes you, it's not like it's not something, oh, it's something that, oh well, we don't really know whether they like us or not. When somebody dislikes you, so we from that we know that Joseph knew, although the Bible does not tell us that he knew, and the Bible does not tell us how he reacted or responded to how his brothers treated him. However, when we get to Genesis chapter 39, verse 3, we read that Potiphar, who had hired him, noticed that God was with him and that God prospered him in all he did. So, my question to you is, how will you know? How will others know that God is with you? How will others know that God prospers you? Because Potiphar noticed, he hired him. He was sold into slavery, sold as a slave, put in a pit by his brothers, then sold to some men, the Ishmaelites, who sold him in return to Potiphar. And he hired him. And verse 4 of chapter 39 in Genesis says, Joseph pleased Potiphar. And so Potiphar entrusted all his possessions to him. Let me talk to you Nigerians for because I know I'm Nigerian, I know how we do. You know this stuff about, oh, if you are building a house, your eye has got to be on it. You've got to be there. Otherwise, they will steal from you. They will use your money. They will do that. This is somebody to whom everything was entrusted. Everything was entrusted that did not belong to him. Potiphar was one of the rulers, one of the big men. Everything was entrusted to him because the guy noticed, God is with this guy. Do people notice that God is with you? Can anything be entrusted to you and the owner does not look back and say, have they stolen anything? Have they taken anything? And you actually think that by stealing this stuff, by lying, by cheating, you will grow, you will increase? You will not. You will not. You will not. It will seem like you are going up. There will come a time when you will not go up anymore. When that up will come down in a flash, it will bring you down in a flash. It's not a curse, it's a principle. And some of you, your thinking stinks so much that you firmly believe that if you don't steal, if you don't lie, you will not prosper. So, what you're saying is, if you don't join the devil to do his evil, you cannot go up in life. Well, this is an example of a man who was faithful and he prospered. Let's go on. Verse 5 says, I write here about verse 5 of Genesis 39. When you are appointed, God will bless your owners, your boss's household. God will bless your boss's business because you are there. That's how it ought to be. Or why were you hired? If the business is going to stay the same way, if the business is going to stay the way you came, the way you met it, why are you there? Why are you there? It's like having a child and there is no difference in the house. Why is the child born? No difference, because a new character, a new attitude, a new personality has joined the family. So different things will make you laugh, different things will be done because we all have different personalities. So let me take a break, just a second. Okay, so effectively, you can ask a bigger question. Why are you here? Are you here to steal? Are people going to suffer because you have joined their business, you're working in their house, you're looking after their people because they are paying you? It does not tell us that Joseph's salary increased. You don't need an increase in salary when God is with you. You will be favored. I think there is somewhere here that it says he was favored. Verse 8 to 9 says, when Potiphar's wife, because he was a handsome guy, came after him and she kept saying over and over and over again, and he kept saying no. Some of you men will say, she's so fine. Oh, how can you say no to those breasts and that butt? You can't say, you can't, I'm not a foolish man. How can I say no? Was I the one who came after her? She came after me. He said it to be a sin. He said to her, Potiphar, your husband, has given me everything. I'm in charge of everything. I have access. But except you, because you are his wife, we are not sharing you. That's the only thing. But this, I cannot, we cannot do this. But she did not leave him alone, as women do. Went on and on and on till one day, and he kept saying no. Young men, will you keep saying no? Do you fear God so much that you will say, she said to him, this is a sin against God. She didn't say this is a sin against Potiphar. He didn't say this is a sin against Potiphar. He said this is a sin against God if I respond to your overtures towards me. And some of us will say, I can't help it, really. Are you noticing how Joseph thought? His thinking, the way he thought, the thoughts he allowed to curse through his mind. In verse 10, he refused to sleep with his master's wife because it's a sin against God, not a sin against Potiphar, his boss. And when she grabbed a hold of his clothes, he said, I said, sleep with me. He ran away and left his clothes. Now he was thinking righteously. He was thinking spiritually. He left it. One of my pastors said, pick up your Reeboks and run. Because many times it's not English you will speak. Leave me, run. Because I won't be shocked that Joseph knew that if he stayed there, he would sleep with her. If he stayed to talk, he will sleep with her. He fled. In verse 20, he was put in prison. Why? Because the wife lied. Sometimes when you're thinking right, people will lie against you. People will come against you. People will hurt you. That is no reason to stop thinking spiritually. None. To stop thinking righteously. None. None. No reason. Because it's life. God will take care of you. People who hurt you, God will deal with them. But God was with him even in prison. Think about it. He was now a convicted, and God came into prison with him. Where he was locked up, he did not have freedom anymore. And the Bible tells us in verse 21 that God showed him grace and favor. And guess what? The prison warden, just like Potiphar had noticed that God is with this guy. What did the prison warden do again? Put him in charge of everything. Made him the supervisor of all prisoners so that Joseph was in charge. So the warden, who was supposed to be in charge of all prisoners, which included Joseph, was earning his salary for doing nothing. Joseph was doing all the work. So, of course, I'm sure he had perks, he was favored, but he was in charge. He had keys. He could have done a jailbreak. He did not. He could have gotten into agreement with some of the convicts and said, let's escape. He did not. God was with him. God gave him grace and favor. He maintained his stand with God. He kept thinking righteously, spiritually. In verse 23, I wrote here, the prison warden was earning money for doing nothing. God prospered what Joseph did. The warden knew God was with Joseph. There is a way to think that causes the grace and favor of God to be upon you. In spite of all Joseph had gone through, all the bad stuff. I mean, when your own members of your family are treating you like that and they're disliking you, that is not a walk in the park. I'm telling you, Joseph should have been traumatized. Guess what? There was a trauma cure. The way he was thinking. The way he was thinking. The way he kept thinking. And your thoughts determine your behavior. For as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. It determines who you are. So his thinking is his thinking helped him to do what he had to do. His thinking helped him to do what he had to do. To become who he ought to, who he should be. What are you thinking? And what's amazing about it is your thoughts are in your control. Irrespective of what's happening around you, you decide how you are going to think, what you are going to think of, who you spend time with. It has nothing to do with what happened to you and how annoying it is and how it broke you and how it destroyed you and how. If you are, that means you are being controlled. You are not in control. So there is no excuse. We give over our control. If it's difficult for you to get over a traumatic situation, get help. Don't bury yourself. Don't make yourself less than you ought to be. Because there simply is no excuse. None whatsoever. And we know the end. Joseph became the prime minister. He was the one who decided what was sold, what food people ate. Can you imagine the power he had? Can you imagine the power? We bypassed how he was just interpreting people's dreams. He had a gift, a call, an anointing, and he was using it. So some of us, our thinking on how angry we are, how upset we are, will take us away from, wait a minute, I have a gift, I have a call. Okay. Well, I hope this serves you. Share with me your thoughts, and I hope it inspires you to think righteously, think spiritually. It is well with you. See ya.